30 years ago, a woman was beaten to death in the parking garage of one of the busiest airports in America. Witnesses, surveillance cameras, a clear suspect pool, and somehow nobody has ever been charged. Susan Taraskiewicz was 27 years old. She had just finished her shift, and to this day, the people who worked alongside her every single day have never had to answer for it. So what exactly would it take? You already know her name, but you don't know what she walked into. Susan Taraskiewicz worked as a ramp agent for Northwest Airlines at Logan International Airport in Boston. September 1992. She was 27, smart, well-liked, and she had done something that put a target on her back without her fully understanding the weight of it. She had started talking to supervisors about the people she worked with, about things happening on the ramp that weren't supposed to be happening. One detail sits quietly underneath everything else. The night she was killed, her car was found with the engine still running. She had reported her coworkers. That's where this starts. Theft, misconduct, violations on the ramp. Susan had gone to management, and the people she worked alongside every day knew it. Think about that environment for a moment. Shift work, tight crews, a world built on physical labor and unspoken loyalty, where the person who talks is the person who breaks something that can't be fixed. She had broken it. Investigators believe she was ambushed in the employee parking garage at Logan. Her body was found inside her car. She had been beaten. The medical examiner determined she was struck with a blunt object. She had also been strangled. This was not impulsive. Someone planned this, waited for her, and made sure she didn't leave. Here's what should unsettle you. Logan Airport in 1992 was not a quiet facility. There were surveillance cameras. There were hundreds of employees moving through that garage on any given shift. There was a narrow suspect pool of people who would have known her schedule, her car, and what she had done to make herself a target. And yet, the investigation stalled. Witnesses reportedly stopped cooperating. The people who had worked alongside Susan, the same people with clear motive, the same people investigators circled repeatedly over the years. None of them were ever charged. Researchers who study workplace retaliation cases note a consistent pattern. When the threatened group is tight-knit, socially bonded, and economically dependent on each other, the code of silence doesn't just hold. It calcifies. It becomes identity. Talking stops being a choice and starts feeling like betrayal of something people have mistaken for family. Susan had already made that choice once. She had chosen to speak. And the people around her had watched what happened to her. Over the decades, investigators reportedly developed persons of interest. There were names that came up again and again in connection with the case. The FBI became involved at various points. In 2017, the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office announced they were actively reinvestigating. Grants were pulled. Financial records were examined. Some reports indicated investigators believed the murder may have been connected to cargo theft operations running through Logan at the time. Organized, ongoing, and valuable enough to protect. Valuable enough to kill for. That reframe matters. Because if you've been thinking about this as a crime of anger, a coworker who snapped, a moment that got out of hand, the evidence doesn't quite support that. The beating was severe. The planning was deliberate. This looks less like someone who lost their temper and more like someone who made a calculation. Susan wasn't just killed because someone hated her. She may have been killed because she was useful to silence. Here is the part that stays with you. She reported misconduct. The institution she reported it to did not protect her. She went to work the next day, and the day after that, and she kept going to work in the same place, with the same people, under the same fluorescent lights, until one night in September, she walked into a parking garage and didn't come back out. No one who knew something has ever spoken publicly. Not in 30 years. You want to believe that's fear. It might be, but researchers who study group complicity in violent crimes note something darker. That silence, over time, stops being a choice people actively make. It becomes the ambient condition of their lives. They wake up, they go to work, they eat dinner, and the thing they are not saying becomes so embedded in the architecture of their daily existence that they stop feeling it as a weight. They just live. Susan Taraskiewicz does not get to do that. There is something about this case that doesn't feel exceptional. That's the part you sit with. A woman spoke up. She paid for it. The people around her went quiet. And 30 years later, the machinery of ordinary life has simply continued. Careers, retirements, grandchildren maybe, built on the foundation of a thing nobody said out loud. You want justice to feel inevitable, like a law of physics, like it has to arrive eventually. This case asks you what you actually believe about that. If you know something, or you know someone who does, the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office still has this case open. Cold cases close when people decide silence is no longer worth the cost. What would it take for someone to finally decide that?